So page 225
I got it.
in your books, your slope-intercept form. So here's our slope formula. Now, we might have linear relationships that are non-proportional, and what that really means is it's just not necessarily starting at 0. Some of them may start at 0, some of them may not. Our Chromebook should be put away. But anyway, our slope is still this m, right, Elena? Right, Andrew? Our slope is still this m. So it can be written in the form y equals mx plus b. See this new part of our form? It's got our y-intercept, page 225. So when an equation is written in this form, m is the slope. So m is still our slope. That's still the same. But b now, whatever is being added to this, is the y-intercept. So the y-intercept of a line is the y-coordinate of the point where the line crosses the y-axis. So right here, our y-intercept is where this line goes through the y-axis. Where is it going through the y-axis? 1. So this is really the point 0, 1. So when x equals 0, our y-intercept is 1, right? Does that make sense? Our y-intercept is always at the point when x equals 0 because it's running into the y-axis. So do you see this slope? Do you see this y-intercept? Typically, I would tell you to start where the y-intercept is. So if my y-intercept is at 1, I would put a point here on my y-axis, and then I would think of my rise over my run. My rise is what? What's the top of my fraction? 1. So I would be going up 1, and what is my run? 2 over 2. So I would go 1, 2. And do you see how that's another point here? Up 1 over 2. That's my slope of 1/2. You see how I could graph this from an equation? We're going to have lots of practice. So here, in a non-proportional linear relationship, the graph passes through the point 0b, which is the y-intercept. So whenever x is 0, whatever the y value is b in our slope formula. Remember our slope-intercept formula. So remember that's y equals mx plus b. So this is something you need to know. The more you write it, the more you see it, the more you say it, the more you learn it, right? The more you'll remember it. So using our slope formula, we can figure out what it would be. Are you ready? So they are giving us 2 points. They're giving us the point 0b, which is our y-intercept, and the point xy, which is any point on our line. So they're saying y2, which is y, minus y1, which is b, all divided by x2, which is x, minus 0, which is what x equals at our y-intercept, right? So this is really simplified y minus b divided by x, because x minus 0 is simply x. That equals m. So now, if we multiply both sides by x, boys, stop. If we multiply both sides by x, it cancels out the x from below our fraction bar. So we're left with y minus b. And m times x, we just write as mx. Now we have to get y by itself. How do I undo subtracting b? Remember our 1 and 2 step equations? We have to add b to both sides. If we add b to both sides, we're left with y on the left, and then the mx plus b. So here, we use the slope formula and 2 points to come up with our slope-intercept form. Okay? So now we need to be able to identify slopes and y-intercepts. Identify the slope and y-intercept of the graph of the equation. To identify the slope and y-intercept of the equation, write the equation in the form y equals mx plus b. All right, so this is y equals 2/3 x minus 4. So how would you think about that? How do we think about subtracting 4? It's really adding the opposite. So this is plus a negative 4. Essentially, whatever sign is attached to b, that is telling us if our y-intercept is positive or negative. Put them away, please. So we're trying to decide if our y-intercept is positive or negative based on what sign is in front of the b. Here, there's a negative in front of it, so our y-intercept is negative 4, right? And remember, our m is our coefficient of x. So that's what our slope is. This is what our y-intercept is. Right? Okay, so the slope of the graph is 2/3 and the y-intercept is negative 4. So we would draw a point at 0, negative 4, and then we would go up 2 over 3, up 2 over 3. We could put points there and draw a nice, beautiful line, right? So identify the slope. Here's your check. What is the slope? This is page 227. What's the slope? And what is the y-intercept? Remember, this is in the form y equals mx plus b. So what is m? What's your coefficient of x? And what is your y-intercept? Take a second and make sure you can figure that out. What's m plus b? M is your coefficient. Careful with b. Is it positive or negative? It's negative. So m is your coefficient. So including its sign, negative 2/5. So that's down to right 5. Now you don't need to write it, but I do want you to remember what the slope means, right? And b is simply this whole piece here. If it's positive, we would just write 1, but since it doesn't say +1, it says -1, it's actually a negative 1. It's our y-intercept. Okay, so don't forget the sign that's in front of both your slope and your y-intercept, whatever b is. All right, so here, now we need to be able to write equations in slope-intercept form if we're given the slope and the y-intercept. So we know y equals mx plus b. Oh, that's what they're having us put here. Y equals mx plus b. What are they telling us the slope is of this line? What's the slope? With a slope of, if the slope is -3, then m equals -3. Where do we put what m equals? That's our coefficient of x. So we're putting it in front of the x. So we're going to put -3 here. Our y-intercept of -4. So b equals -4. That's what we're putting after the x. If it was a y-intercept of 4, we would have to write +4. But here, it's not. So we have y equals -3x minus 4. That's how we would write it in the most simplified form. So the equation of the line is here. What's nice about this is it always gives us our answer, right? But you need to figure out how to get there. In our text, they always give us the answers. Yes, in our examples. Now write the equation of a line in slope-intercept form with a slope of 5. So m equals 5. And a y-intercept of -7. So b equals -7. Write it in the form y equals mx plus b. So y equals what? What goes in front of the x? 5. Excellent. Don't forget to write your x in there. And what goes in place of plus b? We're going to write -7. Is that pretty straightforward? Totally foreign? Is anybody lost in space? We're doing okay? All right. So now is where these graphs come in. So you can write an equation in slope-intercept form of a non-proportional linear relationship from this graph using these steps. So find the location where the line crosses the y-axis. So here, they're plotting the point. If our y-intercept is -1, what does b equal? So this is equal to b. B is -1. Find the ratio of the rise to the run. So they drew their triangle here. It goes up 3 over 2. The slope is equal to what letter in our form? M. So now we just need to put m and b into our equation. So y equals, put in m, 3/2 x, and what is b? -1 minus 1. So it's important that we remember that slope is m. We've been practicing with that for quite a while, and that our y-intercept is b. That's our y value of the y-intercept. So find the y-intercept. The line crosses the y-axis at 0, 4. So the y-intercept is what? 4. Our y-intercept, remember, is also equal to b. Find the slope. So they drew this triangle for us. It's going down 1 unit. So that's -1 and over 2 units. So the slope of the line is down 1, so -1, and right 2, that's +2. This is our slope, or m. Now we just need to put it into our equation. What is m? That's going in front of my x, -1/2. What is b? That is going to be added to my mx. So simplified, it looks like this. So you have 1 check. We need to find m and b in order to write our equation in y equals mx plus b. So find your y-intercept. What does y equal here? Y equals 3. Careful, it's only going up 2 from our origin. So b equals 2. Is this a negative slope or a positive slope? Nice. Right? Nice negative, right? Down 1, 2, 3. Down 3, so -3 and over 1. So we could simplify that to be -3. So putting this in, we would have y is equal to negative 3x plus 2. Okay, so tomorrow we're going to be practicing with that. Here, it looks pretty good because we got through example 3 today. So we should be well on our way to get a lot of the practice done in class tomorrow. So you have lots of helps. All right. Make sure you stack up chairs neatly, please. Put calculators away.